Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for being here today. I'm Mike Cooper with City Planning and Building Services, and joining me today for this exciting announcement, Darren Ketchum, Director of Community Development, along with Mayor Huther. I think a common message that you'll hear from all of us today is that the interest level of downtown development has never been greater. We're seeing investment continuously in new construction, repurposing existing buildings throughout the downtown. And part of that interest, we believe, is going to expand into the Railyard redevelopment project that we have been talking about for quite some time. Last year, if you recall, the city brought in the firm of RDG based out of Omaha, a planning and design firm, to provide some expertise for us to work with our community on creating a vision, a framework of what that Railyard site could look like someday. We had a really positive input from the community. Many people talked to us about what their vision should be for downtown, what the city's vision should be, what kind of things that they would like to see, not only in the Railyard itself, but also in other areas of the downtown adjoining the Railyard site. We also talked to property owners and even developers to kind of get a better framework of what is realistic in terms of the future of the Railyard for Sioux Falls, South Dakota. So the plan that was put together, again, is a framework. It's not intended to be a master plan or a blueprint. We want to start out with some ideas of what is potentially could happen, what potentially could happen to the Railyard, that vision. But we also want to provide some flexibility to adapt to the market, to adapt to other developer ideas, whether they're from Sioux Falls or from outside of Sioux Falls. And the framework plan really provides some interesting concepts for this property within downtown. So you can imagine a pedestrian walkway that connects all this property from the north to the south that could also be used by bicycle folks. You can imagine walkways along with roadways that would encircle the property to provide access to future parking, future multi-story mixed-use buildings that could be retail, office, or residential. You can imagine a potential for an indoor-outdoor farmers market. You could imagine a potential for a central plaza that could act as a town square. And you can even imagine working with property owners in the market to maybe create another demand for additional hotel and meeting space within the downtown port of Sioux Falls. All of these things are possible, and all of these have been put together as a concept with RDG's advice. Within the Railyard itself, which is just under that 10 acres of land, we've identified the potential for 80,000 square feet of office space. We've identified the potential for up to 50,000 square feet of additional retail space. And we've also identified the potential for another 200 to 250 residential units. And that's just on the Railyard site itself. And you can imagine that with this development, it's going to spur even more development around the adjoining areas of downtown and tie into the Big Sioux River Greenway, the East Bank, the Phillips Avenue corridor, and beyond. So that's the vision, but a vision only remains a vision if we don't implement it. And so the next step in this important process that Darren will be talking to you about is what do we do now to make that vision become a reality?
Thanks, Mike. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for coming. Sioux Falls is growing at a record pace. You know, last year we saw $700 million of investment in Sioux Falls. We had more than $50 million of investment in downtown alone. Some of those signature projects that we like to look at last year include the Main Avenue Road Diet, Stockwell Engineering, Jones 421, Washington Square. We look at downtown and the vitality of our downtown. Phillips Avenue has never been stronger. The combination of private and public investment has brought a renewed pedestrian presence to Main Avenue in our downtown. While it's great to celebrate the accomplishments of the past, we can't sit back and celebrate for too long. 2017 has just a tremendous amount of opportunity, and it's going to be an even bigger year for downtown Sioux Falls. We have a rare opportunity in Sioux Falls with the Railyard. Very few communities can say that they have 10 acres in the heart of their downtown that they get to reshape and reform and repurpose. These opportunities, Mike mentioned some of them: housing, office, retail, entertainment, outdoor space, collaborative space. The sky is really the limit. We have a framework. That framework gives us some ideas, maybe some limits as far as what's going to be really great and what's not going to be really great. In between, there's a ton of open space, and that's where this RFQ really takes hold, and where we really look to our private partners to come in and redevelop this in a grand fashion, to make that visionary and bold investment, just like our city did more than a decade ago when we started the process to acquire this Railyard. This RFQ process is going to be a competitive process that's focused on identifying the best team to come forward with the best project. Average is not good enough. We are going to do something bold in downtown Sioux Falls through this redevelopment project. We'll take every effort to make sure that we're selecting these bold and visionary projects. And we do have places for average projects, but it's not going to be in the Railyard. This process will start tomorrow and will continue over the next few months, but we expect the RFQ to go out and come back to us in March, so about 6 weeks' time for developers, partners, corporations, whoever wants to put in for this, gets an opportunity to submit their best idea. After we go through that qualifications process and determine that firms or organizations, companies have the financial capacity, the experience, the history to carry forward a project in our new redevelopment, we'll then ask for them to provide the details of their redevelopment proposal. What is that building going to look like? What's the program for that? How many housing units are you thinking? How many square feet of office are you thinking? Do you want a hotel? We'll get there. We're going to do this right. We want to make sure we have the best partner, the best project, and that we maximize the investment that our city's made through the use of the federal earmark and the foresight of many of those folks that have come before us. This is a grand opportunity over a decade in the making, and we expect that we'll work on this maybe for the next decade or two. We're going to do this the right way that Sioux Falls can be proud of. So thank you all for being here today. I'd like to invite Mayor Mike Huther to make a few comments. Thanks, Mike.
I appreciate it. Before I give you anything that will wow you, let me just step back and recognize that, hey, Sioux Falls, we are going to do something really outstanding, but we need to step back just a little bit and let folks know this started way back in 2005. Thanks to the work of Senator Johnson and Senator Thune and so many others, we were able to acquire an earmark that ultimately allowed us to pay for this property. People like Josh Peterson, Mark Cotter, Governor Dugard and his team, and so many others took this very, very convoluted, very, very difficult project, and they took it over the goal line, and that brings us here today. And so didn't want to go too far without recognizing them. Now, Sioux Falls, I'm going to say something that probably will completely shock you. And here it goes. For the first time in the 7 years that I've been your mayor, I'm going to encourage you to slow down just a bit. Take your time. As much as I want to get things done for Sioux Falls, this is one time where I'd encourage us, as Darren said, let's do it right. Certainly, I have a goal and that is I'd love to at least get one shovel in the ground before I'm done being your mayor. So that gives us about 16 months to make that happen. But if it doesn't happen, that's okay. Did I just say that? If it doesn't happen, that's okay. Folks, I want to get the most grand, the most visionary, and yes, the most sustaining projects. Those are the ones that we are truly going to evaluate as a city before we allow that shovel to go into the ground. Because again, I do think that this has the makings to be the biggest win in Sioux Falls history. I believe it. It's going to last longer than the indoor pool. It's going to last longer than the River Greenway. It's going to last longer than the event center. It's going to last longer than these other things that we've tackled as your city over the generations. This one is going to last longer than all of us. It's going to last longer than our grandchildren, and it'll last longer than their grandchildren. That's how important this one is. So with that in mind, Sioux Falls, I'm unbelievably excited about this. We did it. We got it this far. But we're going to do it right. We're not going to do it fast. And there will be a lot of people cheering us on along the journey. So